Okay, so we initiated the stream, see if it goes. Says it's starting. All right, welcome. Current date is July 26, 2018. It's a little after 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm back. So I just did some traveling. I went on a 6-day meditation retreat and then went to Mexico for a couple of weeks. I guess you could say it was a transformational experience, but it's really just kind of, more steps on this path as I, continue to, all right, there we go, the stream's running. Let's continue on this path of meditation and being present in the now as a practice. It's not a fast process. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of intention to do. And so here I am. I'm back to just keep pushing. I feel good. I mean, I feel better than ever. I continue to feel like a healthy and centered human being. Meditation can only do that for you, right? Meditation can only make you more present and calm with the reality that's going on around you. Whereas the alternative to that is to be thinking and feeling discursively all the time in anxious and depressive or angry ways, right? And before I start, I want to talk for a moment about the concept of kindness and what kindness means from a meditation perspective. Loving kindness does not mean being polite, right? I feel like a lot of Buddhists actually take it to mean that. I've never really identified as a necessarily polite guy. But loving kindness and compassion is about not being hard about your ideas and hard on yourself, right? Because when you're in those moments where you're being hard on yourself, you're like, I need to do this, I need to do that, or I wish this didn't happen, or like every time you got that that goes in your head and in your body, that's hardness. And when you're being hard in that way, you're immediately taking yourself out of the present moment, actually. And by taking you out of the present moment in that way, you're actually not confronting reality. It's kind of a delusion. It's kind of an illusion of thinking you are confronting reality and you are confronting yourself, when you're not really, because you're taking yourself out of the present moment. And so kindness and softness is about allowing yourself to actually continue being in the present moment and continue being yourself, right? I also want to talk for a minute about narcissism, because this whole plague of narcissistic deflection, pathological malignant narcissism, is destroying our world and our society. And it seems very ironic that a guy who is live streaming his stream of consciousness is talking about narcissism, right? It kind of sounds like a projection. And maybe to a certain degree, it perhaps is. But there are a few really important components to think about when it comes to narcissism, like as like a personality disorder, right? Because there are millions of people now who live stream what they're doing. That doesn't make them narcissists, right? I actually identify as an empath. I actually identify as a very strong empath or a super empath. That's what gives me the ability to do this kind of stuff. And I claim that for a few reasons. Because narcissists, first of all, don't experience empathy, right? They have real challenges empathizing with other people because they're constantly self-absorbed, right? They're constantly anxiously cycling about who they are and maintaining their false mask, their false self. And that goes to the other major component of what narcissistic personality is about. There's a real self and there's a false self that they project out into reality. And the whole purpose of Transparent Zach from the beginning was to force me to confront who my real self is. Right? It no longer allowed me to project out a false self to the world and just continuously fuse those selves together. It just made the false self collapse. Right? So that's not narcissism. Right? To reveal the real self, to reveal the true self, who you actually are, primordially speaking, even. And that's something you can look into when it comes to Buddhism and meditation, the concept of a primordial mind, right? That actually the self ultimately does not even really exist. And so in that sense, this whole experiment of Transparent Zach, which I hope is not going to be an experiment much longer, it's becoming more and more real. It's becoming more real to me. I think it's going to become more real to others around me. Where I'm actually doing work this way. The plan is to, I'm a total amateur in software development, but the plan is to continue pushing along in the route of, developing Potluck. And soon I intend to go back to work in terms of community organizing. And I think it's coming time to start our Richmond, and really taking, substantial steps around that. Our Richmond being, a new progressive movement basically in the city of Richmond. And one that's founded on meditation practices, actually. To do community organizing meditatively and contemplatively, mindfully, where we actually train people on mindfulness and on meditation, on anti-racism, on anti-classism, to help them understand more rigorously the components of reality that are going on around them, and as well as their own psychologies. Most people think of community organizing, they think of it as this really stressful experience, and it's just like, it's really hard work. And I think there are real possibilities around shifting that. Where, like, if you show up and do community organizing, it's a contemplative experience. Not necessarily easy, but it's not necessarily hard either. It just is. And I look forward to do community organizing not only as a meditative experience, but also as a function of radical transparency as well. I think if you make the choice of leading a progressive movement, you should do it in a very transparent way. You should live stream your board meetings. That's something that's very interesting about the Richmond Progressive Alliance. The Richmond Progressive Alliance is actually less transparent than like county committees in the Democratic Party here in California, right? The Alameda County Democratic Central Committee actually live streams its meetings. The Richmond Progressive Alliance doesn't do that. So who's more progressive then? Who's more progressive then? That's actually a real question. You know, I think, um, oh shoot, I'm wondering if sound is actually going through here. Oh yeah, it is. Okay, fair enough. So, I don't necessarily mean to monologue at the start of every one of these videos, but it's been a few weeks since I did this, and so, you know, it's a real temptation to do it. And again, it's like it's really tiring to do this because as I'm doing this, I'm doing it with mindfulness, right? It's like, at least in terms of how my mind body works, as that camera is recording, and as, you know, I also hear in my headphones my own voice, all that stuff, right? You know, I'm being radically present with myself. I'm not thinking about what I'm saying before I actually say it either. It actually really is pretty much stream of consciousness. And again, because it's still a practice to do this work, it may be that I'm just going to sit here and fucking meditate for 2 hours, right? And I think there will come be a point when I can just work and do stream of consciousness as work in a working capacity for a full workday. That's the goal. My hypothesis is that if I'm able to do that, shit will get really crazy in a good way. Part of what makes me really excited about Transparent Zach and doing community organizing perfectly transparently is that it's like, as I make appeals to like nonprofit foundations and stuff like that, it will be on them to do their jobs and actually fulfill their mission statements and stuff, right? I think most of the time we have a society where, because there's this obsession with privacy, and I'm calling it an obsession at this point because it's not reality anymore. We no longer have privacy. Everything that we do is data mined. Yet everybody is acting like they still have privacy. It's actually really crazy if you think about it. I think it's actually a kind of mental illness at this point. To live under the delusion that you have privacy when in fact you do not. Why? Especially why, if there's the possibility that living more transparently, that living with radical honesty about who you are and what you do and your level of competency, that it's possible that that is an act of meditation and can actually sharpen and hone the power of your mind. There was a study done by a researcher in University of Michigan. Found it a couple of weeks ago, and it's probably the closest study that I've found to date to what I'm doing. And what he did was he was having worry children with worry-based anxiety do a complex cognitive task. But before having them do that complex cognitive task, he was having them do stream of consciousness writing for 8 minutes before starting the work. And the result of that experiment was that the children who did the stream of consciousness writing, their heads were hooked up to EEG machines. And the result was that the children who did the stream of consciousness writing and did the same, complex cognitive task, their minds, their brains, were exerting a lot less energy to complete the same task. Their minds were much more calm. Now, you could say right now that I'm doing a form of stream of consciousness right now. And the more I do this, the more calm my mind, becomes overall. I definitely see it that way. And I think anybody who has watched the Transparent Zach videos, like from the beginning, granted, I think cannabis had the biggest impact in terms of like presence and how I was being. But then even after I stopped smoking cannabis, I was still really up there in terms of energy, right? And I think now you can see that it's like really is kind of like I'm a new man. And the thing is I feel like I kind of had like the end of the beginning, as it were, in terms of like meditation, like a few weeks ago while I was on this meditation retreat. I was at a place called the Windhorse Center in Wisconsin. And I just have some memories that are like passing through me right now of being there. I don't necessarily want to go into those stories right now. They have to do with mindful eating. I grew up eating junk food and stuff and not having a healthy diet. And so there's a lot of trauma actually that could like well up like through me right now, and I kind of like feel it, like it's there. It's in subconscious mind, subconscious body. If I tell the story again, it's like more that's going to start surfacing again. I can already feel myself like getting tired and like sleepy as I kind of reflect on that experience internally. Just remembering a joke from the retreat. To have an enlightened mind is not to never think about anything ever. It's to have the power and the presence to be fully human, fully the human being who you are in that moment, in that now. And to be that, your mind becomes so powerful that thoughts and feelings, they still pass through you, but they don't grab you. They're there. They're part of you. You still feel those feelings and you still think those thoughts, but you're still present in exactly who you are, exactly what you're doing in the moment. Present in my body and feeling my body as I'm speaking. Because all this is part of the same communication, right? It's not just the words that are coming out of my mouth, it's the presence of my body. And it's not something that can just be engineered, made up, faked. That's the narcissistic way, right? The narcissistic way is to tense yourself up and so you can kind of get it out there. So you can analyze exactly what you're going to do before you do it. And there are meditators who do that. I think they're narcissistic. I think it's like, if your mindfulness is, I know what I'm going to do before I do it, I really challenge that, actually. I think what you're doing, you're managing mask. You're building a mask. You're not being primordial self. You should trust that mindfulness is actually to simply, you realize you're aware of what the primordial action figure does. Right? That's one of my favorite terms now, action figure. Right? Kind of goes along with the theory of non-duality and how that works, which I encourage you to read about if you're not familiar with it. Oh, how humble the place this starts from. Of course, it's entirely possible that this won't work, right? I think you should be able to trust, though, like yourself. I mean, I say this as a guy who fucking, you could say, risked everything or threw everything away or whatever you thought I did with the first steps of this project. And allowing my selfishness to just ring free. Right? To finally be able to see it and let go of it. To merge that real self. To bring it forward. To let that fake self, that egoic shell that I wear, just continue cutting it away and eating it out from the inside. I just want to say, it's like, you know, trust your path. Each one of us, even though I'm saying we don't, you know, the self doesn't exist and non-duality and all that crap, and without going too deeply into it, it's like, you know, each mind body, we're all biologically unique and we're all culturally unique. You have, you know, a unique path, and only you can interact with the world in such a way that you are consistently being more honest with yourself, consistently being more transparent and real in the moment and non-anxious in the moment, acting, doing, right? I want to act and I want to do. I want to do it right now. Not be overwhelmed. I'm gonna get some coffee. Just feeling and experiencing every movement of my body. And everything I touch. It's just there. I'm gonna die, so it doesn't matter. It's not worth being attached. Hi. It's okay. It's a slow process. Okay. Oh man, it's really, it's just really intense doing this. You know, most live streamers, right? Most don't do this improvisationally, right? They prepare. They're like, okay, this is what I'm doing today. I'm not doing that. Because that's not as meditative, I don't think. Alright, I'm gonna listen to music for a minute here. Meditate with it, drink this coffee. And I'll turn off the music and hopefully we can get going here. But it's like already I'm feeling my energy not draining, but it's just it's going. Let's just try this. And I don't think the desktop audio is necessarily playing. Maybe it is. Takes real effort, takes real discipline to not be ashamed of who you are or what you're capable of, or even your judgment, right? I take issue with the people who are ashamed of those things. I take issue with the people who try to project out this false self and fake it until they make it. I think those people, and that's most of us, are doing a disservice to themselves and everyone else as they do that. Keeping it real allows you to, in my view, become progressively smarter faster. It's the most intense thing that I've ever done. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's freeing my mind. All right. I want to start. What's hard about starting is that I don't know what it is that I'm going to write today, right? I have not anticipated that. Becoming a transparent professional is about allowing that creative wisdom that is already inside of you to emerge in real time and to impact reality in real time. All right. I'm just going to do a read through of what's already been written. And I might talk about some of these things, and organizing for social and economic change is really hard. Most of the systems grassroots leaders have to use are antiquated, expensive, and require extensive training in order to even begin using. To use. So us with a lot of confusion about how to reorganize our communities for a stronger democracy. American democracy. The automation revolution is in full swing. Millions of jobs have already been lost to automation across virtually all sectors of work. In the coming decades, almost all of us will face confusion and stark choices about how to be relevant in a world where artificial intelligence and robotics play the core role in doing work. POTLUCK, Secure Life Manager, is a reinvention of all the tools regular people need to get involved in their communities and economy. The goal of this project is to become communities, organize, and to organize communities and economy. Free, encrypted, open source, and decentralized organizing protocol available. Redesign organizing software to make it user-friendly for people around the world to prepare their communities for the automation revolution. Today, most machine learning software is developed and managed in the form of workflows. Designing a community organizing system around workflows could offer the best chance at conditioning, training, chance to condition the general public and the realities, the eventual realities in life. Customized, so one can do virtually anything through simple tutorialized steps. One. Oh, we're not going to do that now. We'll talk about journeys later. Alright, now one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to flip the use cases to talk about community organizing first. I can't believe this is happening right now. But I can. This is happening. I'm doing it. Oh. It's a lot of intensity of energy flowing through my body right now. Just like... peace among worlds. Oh, man. Certification and reputation for competently completing servings. Whatever. sit down. Wow. Okay. I just had a pretty strong vision in terms of how journey mode can can work. The problem with most sharing economy applications right now is, like time banking, is it requires you need to create like a marketplace of offers. But why not create a marketplace of asks, right? As in, why doesn't the platform help users realize the possibilities of asking various stakeholders in a given community to actually create offers on the platform, right? You know, I don't really care so much about like this initial ecosystems of requests and offers or anything like that. Like, oh, in your hometown, you just got 2 users on Potluck, and you know, uh, and they just want to fix a tractor or something like that, right? That's not enough. That's not really anything. But I think the real possibilities are that Potluck can use uh, open source data and data mining to outline, okay, well, here are the best people in your city to ask, right? And please feed back the data of what happens out of that conversation. I really do want a unified database for all of reality, and I want it to be an open source database, right? I believe in a transparent reality. I think that's how we unfuck our world, is through transparency. So, yeah, let's do an internet. Oh, man. I kind of feel like sending Paul Hederman an email right now.
to get rid of Hometown Alliance. Citizen Action Network. Okay, let's reread this.
All right, we'll come to that. Come back to that. Okay, so I'm trying to think of how to structure the wolves and sheep, and I kind of want like to create like opposite personalities, right? You know, because we get a total of 3 wolves and 3 sheep, right? Um, and this isn't really even a necessary feature to go through right now, so I kind of just want to stop. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and do some research and just look for like guides. I've looked at these before, but I need to look at them again. Of just like what needs to be in an app white paper. Okay, let's try that. Okay. We'll go ahead and stop the stream. And, Tiara's done with work. She reports that she was doing for today. And, we're gonna shop for groceries and stuff like that since I've been out of town for a month, and we'll see if I come back to this afternoon or continue tomorrow morning. But I feel like, you know, after the first half an hour, I was able to actually like start like connecting and like doing this thing, and I was feeling like in it. I didn't feel like I was like thinking too much about I don't think I was thinking too discursively. I think I stayed pretty focused on just trying to problem solve and assess like where this currently is. And I just need to get an idea, I need to get an outline of what it is that I actually like need, you know, for this white paper, for people to actually understand what this product is. And to not really do necessarily more than that at this stage, right? Things should be pretty simple. And I need to go back to writing articles about meditation, about what's going on with ERPA and my seminary, right? You know, those are all important, I think, aspects actually of this entire like worldview that I'm now living in. You know, I'm not gonna turn or wall those things off. You know, this is a complete package of transparent living, basically, and transparent professionalism. Okay, all right, thank you all so much, and see you again soon.